Hi, my name is Justin Lamb, and I'll be talking about my grandma. It seems like the older I get, the more I appreciate my grandparents. It's amazing how often their names have come up in conversation in recent years. But today, we are remembering the lives of my last living grandparent. 21 years have passed between the time I lost my first grandparent and today. Over Grandma's lifetime, she has seen 12 different presidents of the United States. When she was born in 1940, it was during the start of World War II, which I am sure we all remember very well. Grandma grew up in Nampa, Idaho. The funny thing is that her house would now be paved over by the freeway that has been constructed, moving several times since her dad was a miner. The one picture I've seen of her as a child was in a small mining town, which is now a ghost town. She was a very young, beautiful, smart, and talented girl that any parent would be proud of. During her 20s and 30s, she was a part of many different clubs and groups. She bowled every Tuesday night in a league, and rumor has it that she was also one strike away from a perfect game. She also loved to play billiards, challenging anyone that dared to step up to her. Furthermore, being her youngest grandchild for 10 years and the youngest grandson, I had special privileges in that, as far as I know, I was the only one that was allowed to make fun of Grandma's age. I was probably already an adult when I turned to Grandma one day and asked, "Where were you when Lincoln was shot?" This after years of ridicule and torture about turning 60, then 65, 70, and so on. She'd come to expect it, and I suspect if you caught her in a weak moment, she'd admit she kind of enjoyed it, I think. I remember when I was 7 or 8 years old, and Grandma took me to the cozy corner in Rushville for pizza. In the middle of the meal, I nearly made Grandma choke on her breadstick when I decided to ask, "Grandma, how are babies made?" She handled it with the age-old grandmotherly response. "You're just going to have to ask your mom and dad about it when you get home," she said. And I did. I hit Mom up first thing after I got home, in the beauty shop as she was doing some woman's hair. Even before that, though, Grandma and I had a tradition. Every year, she'd take me to the Brown County Fair, and we'd ride the Ferris wheel. This was a tradition that began when Grandpa was still alive. Of course, he wouldn't ride the Ferris wheel with us. He kept his feet firmly on the ground, and he'd be standing there waiting as soon as we got off. Those stories aside, it'll be the small things that I remember about Grandma. Going over to her house with Dad on Saturday morning for coffee and cookies, or spending all day trying to get those old Christmas lights to work that probably should have been replaced years ago, or going exploring Grandma's basement so I could report back to her about Grandpa's masterfully jerry-rigged electrical wiring system that had probably caused an alarm even in the most lax electrician. And that would inevitably lead to the story about how Grandpa used to like to stick a screwdriver in electrical outlets just to get a chuckle at Grandma's expense. However, I just mentioned drinking coffee with Grandma on Saturday mornings. It's worth pointing out that she gave me my first cup of coffee at the ripe age of 5. I've been drinking it ever since, which has led up to my pot of coffee a day addiction I enjoy. I think Grandma would agree with me on this, though. Coffee's not a beverage, coffee's an event. Grandma was full of knowledge that couldn't be found anywhere else. I would go over to her house at least twice a week and talk to her about what it was like to be a teenager when she was growing up. She could remember every detail like it was yesterday, making me feel as though I was actually there. Many of you rightfully remember Grandma as the last of the world's best hostesses, and Lord, did that woman have a have a way with place setting. I'll remember that too. But for me, the lasting image I will have is of Grandma strolling into the great beyond, perhaps on a giant Ferris wheel. And if I have to bet on one thing, it's this. Just like he was 30 years ago, I'm sure Grandpa will be there waiting, ready to take her home.